Good afternoon, my dear students. Welcome to the online video class session of sociology. So, my dear students, in our previous class, we discussed about the syllabus and we discussed about the introduction of syllabus of the second semester of sociology. So, here the second semester titled as the Indian society and structure, and also it deals about some changes. So, it seems overall it studies about the Indian society structure and change. So in the process of that, the entire curriculum framework is divided into 5 units. So there are various kinds of perspectives. So the first unit is exclusively deals on the perspectives to study the sociology. So here I was prepared a PowerPoint presentation for your convenience. So let us go in detail about the. So, my dear students, this is sociology, the Indian society structure and change. So, myself, Dr. Maitri Ramlu, CPWRDC, Karimnagar. So, there are 5 units. For example, the first unit is exclusively deals about the perspectives on the study of Indian society. So, here the first unit again it has divided into 5 subunits, such as ideological perspective, structural functional perspective, Marxist perspective, civilization perspective, and subaltern perspective. So here today let us discuss about the first subunit of the perspective on the study of Indian society. So such as the ideological perspective. So what does mean by ideological perspective? The ideology is known as the science of Indian society. So here the ideological and textual is gives the same meaning. You should not get confused. So ideological means it is a kind of study about based on the systematic science, or it's based on the textbooks. So ideology, that is why ideology is known as the science of Indian society. The ideological perspective claims to understand Indian society through the concepts like theories, frameworks. So these are the closely associated with the Indian civilization. So it seems Indology is explains about this society in a different manner, like in the form of concepts. It explains the Indian civilization in the form of concepts. It explains the Indian civilization in the form of theories, and it explains the Indian civilization in the form of frameworks, and which is closely associated with the civilization and the human beings' survival. So this is Indology. Indology consists of studying language, beliefs, ideas, customs, and also codes. So there are various institutions like social institutions were there. So it also deals about the social institutions and the social rituals, and it also explains about the social ceremonies like marriage, various functions of the household. So like that, it explains about the social institutions, it explains about the social rituals, it explains about the social ceremonies, and also other related components of the culture. The culture has it has its own components. So that is why the Indology explains the various components of the culture in a systematic manner, or in a conceptual clarity, in a critical perspective. So that is why Indology is one of the best perspective to study the Indian society. So as it is fact that the Indology is more a textual study. So I already explained that the Indology is the textual study. So many founding fathers of Indian sociology or Western sociology were contributed various concepts are conducted, their studies depends on the textual sources. So if we take India, there are various sociologists who have contributed to the textual perspective, like Manu. So Manu is one of the most important personality of ancient Indian history or ancient Indian society. So sometimes he was called as the Adam of Hindus. So whereas according to the Christianity, Adam was the first person who was created by the God. But whereas according to the Hindu mythology, the Manu is the first person who was created by the God, or who are sent by the God, who are the representative of the people. So that is why he was called as the Adam of Hindu. And not only Manu and Louis Dumont and G.S. Gure. So these are some important personalities who are contributed their ideas in the form of textual perspective to the study of Indian society. So let us discuss one by one in detail. So it claims that the Indological studies claims that the Indian society is unique in structure and functional, and it has its own dynamics. So these are some variations about the study or the Indological study. So my dear students, so let's discuss about the Manu. So Manu is the author of Manusmriti. He was written the book of Manusmriti in ancient period. There was no particular time about the Manusmriti's time, but there are some sources were found that it was belongs to 2nd century or it was belongs to 3rd century. So like that there were some rumors. So this Manusmriti is also known as or called as Manudharma Shastra or Manudharma Samhita. So we should not get confused. Manudharma Samhita, Manudharma Shastra, and Manusmriti. So these all are same. These all are synonyms. So the book Manusmriti is one of the most important book of ancient Indian literature. It is one of the important source to the ancient Indian literature. So it is the most popular book in ancient Indian history and ancient Indian society. So it explains about the Indian social structure in the ancient days. So that is why it was considered as one of the most important book of Indian ancient history. So it discusses the genesis and the evolution of Indian civilization, and it was explained the various kinds of theories about the origin of state. So the Manusmriti tries to explain the genesis and evolution of the human civilization, how the human civilization was started. So it explains, and it is also explains about the origin of state. So there are various kinds of theories about the origin of state. So like divine origin theory, historical evolution theory, patriarchal theory, matriarchal theory, force theory. So like that, there are various kinds of theories about the origin of state. But the Manusmriti is explained exclusively about the divine origin theory. So according to divine origin theory, the state is created by the God. One person has sent as a representative for the welfare of the people. So here Manu was sent by the God as a representative. So this divine origin theory is explained by Manu. So it was written, the Manusmriti was written in a Sanskrit language. It contains approximately 12 chapters, and that 12 chapters included 2685 poems or slokas. So almost it is composed in the form of slokas. So the Manusmriti is the contents of 2685 poems or slokas in a Sanskrit language. That is why the book of Manusmriti was translated into many languages, Indian languages and as well as foreign languages. So the George Bulher was translated this Manusmriti into English language as the Scared Book of the East in 1886. So approximately 240 years back, the book Manusmriti was translated into English language. But according to the Goshal, one of the sociologists, so Manusmriti has not only the exceptional significance, but it also provides the abundance details on the ancient socio-political system of India. So Goshal was highlighted about the Manusmriti that the Manusmriti was not only the exceptional significance, but it is also provide the abundance details on the ancient socio-political system of India. So how the society was created, how the state was originated, who are the rulers, and who are the ruled and who are the rulers. So like this, it will explain about the abundance of the ancient socio-political system of India of those days. So Manu was proposed the Varna system. So according to Manu, the entire society is categorized into four Varnas, such as Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. But nowadays the Varna system was completely discredited. So that is we will discuss in the criticism point of view. But according to the Manu was explained that the society was divided into four Varnas, such as Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. But he was highlighted the hierarchical system about the society because the Brahmins are superiors. So according to the Manu, the Brahmins are born from the mouth of the Brahma, and their qualities are their soul are qualities sattva, and the Brahmins' duties are the performance of yogas, yajnas, karma kandas, and religious and all spiritual activities. And their quest is knowledge. Here, the Brahmins' quest is knowledge. So it seems that they are the superiors, the Brahmins are the superiors. And the second hierarchical group is Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas are born from the shoulders of the Brahma because according to the Manu, Brahma was the creator of the society. Here, Kshatriyas are the born from the shoulders of the Brahma. So their quality, if we go about their quality, the Kshatriyas quality, they are Rajo. Rajo means the powerful. So they have their own duties or they have their own functions like protection of state or maintenance law and order. So these are the functions were given to the Kshatriyas by the Manu. And they have their own quest like power. They always have power, and with that power, they protection the state and they maintain the law and order. And whereas the third group, the third hierarchical group is the Vaishyas. The Vaishyas are born from the eyes of the Brahma. So they have two qualities, Sattva and also Rajo. So means they have the Brahmins quality and as well as the Kshatriyas quality. But the Vaishyas duties are the business and agriculture. But their quest is profit. They always tries to get profit. So like this, and the fourth important group, a majority group is Shudras. So according to the Brahma, these four Varnas were there in the society. The Shudras were least from the bottom. So they are born from the feet of the Brahma. Their quality is Tamo. Tamo means they always tries to obedience. So they are always tries to do all kind of labor works to the above mentioned three categories. So they are their quest is service to the people. Here, the people are none other than the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. So it is somewhat near to the comparison of the Aristotle's, the Plato's comparison of the citizens, slaves, and aliens of the Greek city-states. But there was no caste system in the Greek city-states. But here, according to the Manu, this ladder framed Varna system is created by him, and based on this Varna system, the society was treated. So this is the structure of Varna system, which is proposed by the Manu. Okay, then the second personality is Gaire. So here G.S. Gure. G.S. Gure was one of the most important Indian sociologists. So Gaire stands as the commander of Indian sociologists or Indian sociological frontiers. So that is why he has acclaimed as the father of Indian sociology. He was the first person who was contributed to the concept of sociology in a scientific manner. So Gare was the first scholar who had built up the entire first generation of the Indian sociologists in post-independence period, almost single-handedly. Whereas the India is the sociology is one of the new branch which is established in the 19th century. But in India, it was highlighted by the G.S. Gure. That is why he was considered as the father of Indian sociology. So Gaire's caste system, Gaire was explained on the caste system. So he was studied the Indian society based on the Indological perspective. So Indological perspective is nothing but the textual perspective. Okay, so that is why the Gaire's perspective is somewhat different with compared to the others. Completely, his perspective is based on the textual perspective. So Gaire is often accorded as the theoretical pluralist because he tried to study the Indian society and its culture through multiple methods. Sometimes he was applied the physics to the sociology, science to the sociology. So he was studied the sociology in a multiple methods. He relied on the both empirical and as well as textual methods for studying Indian society. So that is why the Gaire's books were most familiar. The Gaire was explained the caste and race in India. So in that book, he was tried to make the reconstruction of the orthodox, traditional, and age-old social institutions of India like caste system and its structure and its features. So like that, he was highlighted on the caste and its origin in India. So Gaire, if we go somewhat in detail about the Gaire was worked in various aspects. He was one of the most important personality in India who was contributed his entire life for the sake of the development of sociology. So he was studied various areas. So few are the broad areas he was studied, like he was done writings on the caste system. He was done writings on the tribe. He was studied about the kinship. He was studied about the culture and civilization. And he was also studied very much on the religion and sociology of conflict. and its integration. And finally, he was also studied about the various social institutions like family, marriage. So like this, he was studied almost all the areas which are important concepts in the sociology. So let's discuss about his writings. So he was written various books, but out of the various books, I was given a few important academic writings of G.S. Gure. So Govind Sadashiv Gure. So Govind Sadashiv Gure was written Caste and Race in India in the year of 1932. So it seems before independence. So Indian Shudras. So he was highlighted about the Shudras. According to the Manu, the Varna system, or according to the Manu, the entire society is categorized into four Varnas, like Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and the fourth category is Shudras. So he was focused on Shudras and their evolution. And not only was worked on the caste system, but he was also worked on the Bharatanatyam and its costumes. It was written in the 1958. It is after independence. And he was also written on the family and kinship in Indo-European culture. So this book was came out or written in 1955, and finally was also written the social tensions in India. So there are various kinds of social tensions in India, like caste, culture. So there are various kinds of social tensions which were highlighted in that book. So this is about a little bit about the Gaire system, the Gaire's contribution. So Gaire was highlighted on the caste system in India. So let us discuss about the caste system according to the Gaire. So Gaire understood of caste is a comparative and historical and ideological perspective. So he was focused on the caste based on the comparison and based on the historical perspective and based on the ideological perspective. So that is why he was written in his book Caste and Race in India. He was identified the roots of the caste system in India. Gaire considered the caste as the product of Indian culture. In his book, The Caste and Race in India, he has agreed with Sir Herbert Risley, who was said that caste is the product of race. It comes from the India by the Aryans. So he was accepted with the Herbert Risley. And according to the Gaire, the Aryans were in the Aryans were they are the migrants. They are the migrants. They are came India. So Aryan distinguished themselves from non-Aryans just in the terms of color, but subsequently they are different ethnics. They are different ethnic groups. These ethnic groups were developed alliance with other relations. They are maintained with various kinds of relations with other people. And the Hindu culture and values moved from Aryan community to non-Aryan community. So here, Gaire was highlighted that the Aryans were came to India, and along with them, the caste system was originated in India. So before Aryans invasion, there was no caste system in India. So it seems in this process, the indigenous communities developed interpersonal relations through the communication and warfare. Aryan society was appreciated by the indigenous rulers who are injected the element of caste in the society in their social life. So it seems before the invasion of Aryans, the Indian indigenous rulers were not followed the caste system. But when Aryans were came to India, they are injected the the idea of caste in the minds of indigenous rulers, and that they seems that that was good, and they are appreciated the Aryans injection of the caste system, or the Aryans element of caste. So this is about the Gaire's views about the caste system in India. And in addition to that, the priests, not only the indigenous rulers, not only the indigenous rulers were appreciated the element of caste which is brought by the Aryans. In addition to that, the priests, the monasteries, and the travelers also glorified the virtue of the Aryan caste system. So that is why the element of caste transformed from North Indian to the other parts of the country. Actually, first it was came to the North Indian part of the country, but later on it was spread all over the parts of the country. So Aryan society itself practiced different kinds of occupations and allocated to different individuals and individual families. So based on this practice of different kinds of occupations, so based on these occupations, the caste names were allocated to different groups by the Aryans. So before the Aryans invasion, the caste was not the hierarchical exploitative system in India. So please recognize that before the invasion of Aryans, caste was not the hierarchical exploitative system in India. So there was no caste superior, or there was no caste is inferior. So it means there was no caste hierarchy before the Aryans invasion. But this was identified by the Gaire, and Gaire points out that the caste was considered as the central to the organizing form of division of labor. So the caste system is the central to organize the division of labor. So based on the caste system, the entire society is divided various caste groups based on their various occupations. So this is the caste structure of the India according to the Gure. So the G.S. Gure was identified the various features of caste. For example, he was identified 6 features of caste. So Gaire explains the caste in India on the basis of 6 distinctive characteristics. So that is the segmental division of the society. And there were hierarchy and civil and religious disabilities and privileges. So lack of unrestricted choice of occupation and restrictions are on food, drink, and social intercourses. And finally, endogamy. So these are the most important features of caste according to the G.S. Gure. So let us discuss about in detail about the features of caste. So first feature is the segmental division of society. So what is segmental division? It seems the segment is nothing but it is the division of population into various kinds of groups. So based on these groups, basically it generates social groups, but it is not a label. It seems the membership is ascribed by the birth and flows from generation to generation. For example, I am belongs to particular family. My forefathers are there, and in future my generation will be good. So the membership is ascribed by the birth and flows to the from one generation to another generation. For example, I am mighty family, and in future my children will take my surname and continue. So like that, it is the segmental division. So based on the membership, every member has assigned with fixed status and roles and tasks in the society. So, as a member of the society, each and every individual has to perform their own status, has to maintain their own status, and has to perform their tasks like marriage, children, job. So, like that, there are various kinds of tasks are allotted to the each and every individual. And the second feature of the caste is the hierarchy. So, hierarchy is nothing but it is one of the second characteristics of the caste. It is after the segmentation division of the society, they are put in a pyramidal structure, then it is called the hierarchy. So it seems it has its own structure. So according to Gaire, the hierarchy becomes the major consideration of this the major consideration of the deciding the division of labor. So based on their work, the castes were originated. So that is why Gaire was stated strongly that the major consideration of the hierarchy is the division of labor. The entire activities in the society is divided into four types. In the society, the entire works are divided into four types, such as religious works, governance works, maintenance, and menial works. But among all these activities or all the works, the religious works are considered as the superior works. So that is why the Brahmins were handed over the religious works, and the second group, the Kshatriyas, are handed over the governance works, and whereas the third group is Vaishyas, the maintenance, and whereas the fourth group, such as Shudras, were perform all the menial works. So this is the hierarchy of caste according to the Gure. So this is very relevant to the Manu's concept. He was highlighted the caste and race in India is based on the Manusmriti. So that is why he was very near to the Manu in the while explaining about the caste system. And the third feature of the caste system is civil and religious disabilities. So here, civil and religious disabilities express the rigidity of the caste system. The Gaire was observed that the Hindu social system was felt through such disabilities. So these disabilities were common to caste in different parts of the country, all over the country. So the civil and religious disabilities basically came from the concept of purity and pollution. So what is purity and what is pollution? So these disabilities were for pure and impure, purity and polluted. So the above mentioned works, the spiritual works, the governance works. So these works are considered as the pure works, and whereas the the other works like scavenger works and other works are considered as impure works. So that is why each and every society has each and every religion has their own disabilities. But with compared to other religions, the Hindu religion has the majority of the disabilities in the caste system. So the disabilities were pure and polluted, but these pure and polluted castes or privileges were for its pure and impure. So here The pure works were done by the upper caste. The impure works were done by the lower caste. So this is about the civil and religious disabilities of the caste system. And the fourth feature of the caste system is the lack of unrestricted choice of occupation. The the common people doesn't have any right to choose their occupation, because according to the Hindu mythological social structure, the society is divided into four varnas: the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and the Shudras. The Brahmins have their own duties like yajnas, yagas, karma kandas, spiritual works, education, and teaching. And the lower caste people, Shudras, have they have their own works like scavenging works and service works. But according to the Hindu mythological system, the lower caste people doesn't have a right to choose their occupation of the upper caste, like yajnas, yagas, karma kandas. But today, somewhat development has taken place. The before India's independence, or approximately up to the 15th century or 16th century, the education is only available to the Brahmins. But by the invasion of British to India, the education is availed all the communities in India. So the employment is availed all the communities in India. The governance works also availed all the communities in India based on the constitutional norms, because the reservation has been given to the marginalized sections in the constitution. So, but according to the Gaire, the lower caste people doesn't have any right to choose their occupations. There was restrictions. So the occupations have been fixed by the hierarchy or hereditary. If, for example, if I am doing some work, my children also used to that work continue. For example, there are various kinds of caste occupations like potteries, goldsmiths, ironsmiths. They continue carpenters. They continue their work based on the hereditary. So then generally they have not been allowed to change their traditional occupations in those days. But nowadays the somewhat change has taken place. As the member of the caste, the supremacy and the secrecy in their jobs, and do not allow the other caste groups to join in. The upper caste people like Brahmins are free to opt for study of religious books and other works. But whereas the non-Brahmins did not have any right to choose their, their occupations. So that kind of system was there in those days according to the Gure or Gaire. And the lower ranking people or lower ranking activities like sweeping, bathroom, cleaning, and washing clothes, the scavenging works, etc. So these have been kept to the untouchable category. So here the pure and impure also here we can apply. So like this, there was lack of unrestricted choice of occupation according to the Gaire. And finally, the restrictions on the food and drinks. So according to the Gaire, Gaire was highlighted the features of caste system. So the restrictions on food and drinks and social intercourse. Here there were some rules and regulations about the food. So if we take food, there are two types of food: kacha food and pakka food. So it means cooked food and non-cooked food. So in our general terms, the veg and non-veg. Here, veg is non-cooked food and non-veg is cooked food. So like this, there were some restrictions. For example, the Brahmins, they did not eat non-veg. So there was restriction. So like this, there are some various kinds of restrictions on the food according to the diet. And endogamy. So endogamy means the Indian caste system is also popularized due to the endogamy being determined primarily by the caste, by the concept of caste. So people can marry within their own caste. They did not allow to go other castes. If they are go other caste than their own caste, they they have to be punished. So if they disobey the caste rules, it is considered as a crime, but it is also condemned as sin. The caste panchayats, or we can say Kop panchayats. So the Kop panchayats leaders were put some kind of restrictions on that particular persons. These activities, this kind of activities, still we are observing in our society by various media. The caste panchayats do not only that denounces intercaste marriages, but also imposes several punishment upon those who break the rules of the caste system. So, like Kula Baiskarana, if someone marry other than own caste, that particular family members are kept aside from their caste. So these kind of activities are there. These kind of activities still in the still continuing in the society under under various kinds of forms. So this is about the caste system of Gaure. So my dear students, so let us discuss in next class about the another perspective, like structural functional perspective. Okay, so here the structural functional perspective is explained by M.N. Srinivas and S.C. Dubey. So let us discuss about their contribution about the structural functional perspective. So my dear students, so today I am winding up. So thank you very much. So please watch the video and write down the notes. If you have any queries, so please bring to my notice, either in the form of phone call or in the form of mail. I was given my mail and as well as phone number to you. It was in first slide. So if anybody have any queries, so please bring to my notice. So bye, take care.